بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره. اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Last session we studied truthfulness. And we said that in Islamic ethics, truthfulness is one of the most fundamental qualities, if not the most, at least one of the most fundamental qualities. And then there is something that is very important, that this has to be not only a personal quality, but something that we as a community are committed to observe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. So, although taqwa summarizes everything that we need, but still Allah says it's not just enough to be muttaqi. وكونوا مع الصادقين. And you should try to be with the truthful people. Maybe because if you are not with the truthful people, you would not be able to achieve taqwa. And even if you achieve, you would not be able to maintain taqwa. So we need to be in touch with truthful people, or if there are people who are ahead of us in their pursuit of truth, we should follow them, like prophets, like imams, like scholars, that they have been ahead of us in their search for truth, and we can learn from them. Similar to this is what we have in Surah Asr. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر. All people are in loss. Loss means losing your capital. When you lose your capital, you are loser. Yeah, it's not just not making profit. When you are using your capital and not replacing it with profit and not adding to it, but the main thing is even going down, this is loss. For example, some scholars say someone who is selling ice in very hot summer, and ice is melting. If he doesn't manage to sell this ice quickly, all his capital is gone. So we are in loss because our capital is going. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Except those who have faith and do righteous deeds, because they are making profits. But وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. Iman and amal salih should be sufficient. But Allah says, no. You need also to help each other, because you may lose your iman or amal salih, or you may not get it in the first place. You need to work together and help each other and give encouragement to each other, enjoin each other to observe the truth, and patience. We need patience because being with the truth is not easy. Following the truth is not easy. You need to be prepared for going through challenges and difficulties and being tested. So, this is the discussion about truthfulness, and in this way we finish that discussion. We move on to the next lesson, lesson 14. It's about humility. Again, this is very important aspect of Islamic ethics, and in some other places I have also talked about it. In self-development, I have mentioned humbleness as one of the key concepts in Islamic spirituality. Also in the Hose series of Akhlaq, we have few sessions on humbleness. Briefly here, what we say is that there are two opposite qualities that can make a person either very good or very bad, either virtuous or vicious. These two opposite qualities are humility or arrogance. Arrogance is the cause of many problems, if not all problems. If you look at Shaitan, Iblis, what was the root of the problem? Even the root of problem was not that she was jealous. Jealous was a problem. To be jealous, jealousy is a problem. But even jealousy is because of something else. There was arrogance. Aba wastakbar, refused to listen to God, but wastakbara, was arrogant. And this arrogance, of course, was there, but hidden. Sometimes we may have a good or bad qualities for years and we don't notice. Yeah? All of a sudden, something can trigger and that quality comes out. Maybe, for example, it can be also a good quality. For example, maybe a person that we think is a very normal person, God forbids, a fire breaks out and people are in danger. Then we see this person sacrificing his life, going to the building, helping children. People come out. It's not that all of a sudden he became like this, but this was a quality that we didn't know. In the times of test, people can manifest hidden qualities. And sometimes there can be a bad quality, which is hidden. Sometimes when there is shortage of food, for example, famine, you see people show how selfish they are. Or when there is, for example, big crowd, for example, when they want to do tawaf or, ram, sometimes you see people are not as good and kind that when they are, outside. So hidden qualities can manifest. Shaitan had worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 6,000 years. Can you imagine? 6,000 years. Even Amirul Mu'minin says, La yudra amin sanat dunya amin sanat akhirah. These years were years of dunya or years of akhirah. People don't know. La yudra means it's not known, means people don't know. Because if it's year of akhirah, every day is 1,000 years of dunya. So, even if it is worldly years, 6,000 years. And because And look at Allah's mercy. Although shaitan had a problem, but as long as didn't act upon that problem, Allah gave him the outcome of his ibadah. So because of his ibadah, he was able to be with the angels. Okay? This is very important, but also warning that even if you have sensed Allah's support for you, this doesn't mean that you are perfect. You have no bad qualities. Still, the time has not come that Allah would take you, hold you responsible for that quality. So don't take it for granted that I'm a very good person. So you can, na'udhu billah, be like Iblis, but as long as you didn't do something wrong, even if that root is there, Allah says, okay, right now he's doing well, so it's okay, right now. So, for 6,000 years he was worshipping, he was with the angels, he was very high on the surface. Then there was a test. And that test was not involving doing something physical, doing something that would only need, some actions. That test was to show humility, to show respect to Adam. Then this brought out that hidden arrogance. And not only he found it very difficult to prostrate to Adam, he actually stood up against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes maybe someone finds it difficult to be humble. For example, there is someone who is better than me, but it's difficult for me to listen to him, to acknowledge that. But still, I do it, but in my heart it's very difficult. I know this person is better than me, so I should be happy to follow him and let him be in a higher position. But not only shaitan found it difficult, he rejected. And even when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala questioned him, he didn't acknowledge his mistake and he wanted to blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Ana khayrun minh. I am better than him. خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ. You have created me from fire and have created him from clay. Fire is better than clay, so I am better than Adam. And this also shows that when you are arrogant, you can make such stupid mistakes. What type of argument is this? You are better than him because Allah has created you from fire and created him from clay? You are only thinking about material. What about the spiritual side? So, anyway, because he was arrogant, he was not able to understand and acknowledge his mistakes and stood even against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and even put the blame on Allah, said, Rabbi bima aghwaytani, because you have deceived me, I am going to deceive them, and made even everything worse. Even if it was up to here, it was just personal, but he said, I am going to deceive them. And he promised, he swore, بِعِزَّتِكَ لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمْ. Except those who are mukhlas and purified, I am going to deceive all of them. So, Amirul Mu'mineen Nahjul Balagha says, the root of all this problem is asabiyya, is biasness and arrogance. we have to think that this is not only about shaitan, it can happen to us as well. Many people stood against prophets, messengers, imams, pious people because of arrogance. Not because they didn't know. Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl didn't know that Rasulullah is a man of God. They knew. Yazid didn't know. Namrud, Pharaoh didn't know. It's arrogance. And this arrogance can also come to us. Maybe I have a problem with my brother, with my sister, with my husband, my wife, with my in-laws, with my neighbor, with my colleagues, with my enemies, with my friends. In all relations that we have, this arrogance can come. Of course, arrogance is personal, but it shows itself in dealing with other people or in accepting the truth. If I am arrogant, when I say something, I expect everyone to accept. But when people say, I don't accept. Even if I know they are telling the truth, I don't want to accept. Because I have to acknowledge that I didn't know. So it's very, very bad quality to be arrogant, and on the other hand, to be humble always makes you better. We have a hadith here I have quoted in the book on page 216. فَإِنَّ مَنْ تَوَاضَعَ لِلَّهِ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ. Whoever, for the sake of God, tries to be humble, Allah would raise him. This is the nature of this world. If you want to rise, don't become arrogant. Be humble. Let Allah raise you. Let people raise you. Not you try to rise by bringing people down. If you humiliate people and think you are better than people, maybe you can go a little bit high, but then you will be forced to go down. But if you are humble, then Allah has made this world in the way that humble people go higher. You know, look at yourself. If in your family, in your workplace, there is a person who is humble and there is a person who is arrogant, which one do you love? You love humble people. If you are going to give a position to your employees and one is arrogant, one is humble, you choose the one who is humble. We always love people who are humble. In our fitrah, we love humble people. So the same way people react, if we are humble, they love us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would love us. And you will go higher. Of course, we should not be that much concerned with what people think about us. But if someone is concerned about that and wants to have a very high position in the eyes of people, the secret is humbleness, humility, not arrogance. Not promoting yourself by bringing people down. Respect people, honor people, be humble, and they will raise you. There is an ayah in the Quran which is very worrying. If you look at page 216, there is ayah 83 of chapter 28. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يريدون علوا في الأرض ولا فسادا والعاقبة للمتقين. Allah says that the hereafter will be given to the people who do not intend to be superior and do not intend to do mischief. And the good end is for the pious. Look at this. لا يريدون علوا في الأرض, not لا يعلون في الأرض. It doesn't say they are not arrogant and they don't want to have high position and treat people in a bad way. It's not a matter of actually doing or not doing. It's a matter of willing. Because many times we don't do bad things because we don't have the means for that. Yeah? La yuridun. They don't have even intention of this. Because many people have the intention of being above others and ruling over people and having people under their control and asking people to serve them. They have the intention, but they don't have any means. They don't have supporters. This is not enough that you want, but you cannot just do it. There must be no desire in yourself for bringing people under your control and at your service. لا يريدون علوا في الأرض. And so it's not just not to do mischief. You should have no intention of doing mischief. Because many people, God forbid, maybe we are included, are potentially like Pharaoh and Saddam and Hitler. Just they are lucky that they don't have power. Even sometimes you see, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you see people when they are not in power, they talk about justice, human rights, freedom. When they go to take power, they become like previous people. People change, parties change, but you see, humanity is the same. Unless really virtuous people come to power. People who have worked decades on themselves and have emptied themselves from ego. Otherwise, power is, for many people, transforming them. It's very, very difficult. So, Quran says, تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يريدون علوا في الأرض ولا فساد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises people who are humble. On page 214 of the book, we have verse 63 of chapter 25. وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ حَوْنًا. The servants of Allah, which means true servants, because in a sense everyone is a servant of God, but here means real servants of God, true servants of God. When they walk, يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ حَوْنًا, they walk humbly. Those who are arrogant, even when they walk, you can see from the way they walk, they are arrogant. The way they speak, the way they look at you, it shows arrogance. But you should be very humble. وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ. If ignorant people address them and say bad things to them, they don't do the same in reaction. قَالُوا سَلَامًا. They say, peace be with you. You want to initiate war? We are not interested in war. Peace be with you. You don't react to the ignorant people by doing something ignorant. Something the same. You have to react. But if you are arrogant, you cannot do that, If you are arrogant, you get quickly very angry. You say to me this, I will say to you even few more times. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in chapter 31 verse 18 also says, وَلَا تُسَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَمْشِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. Allah says that the way you deal with people should not show any arrogance. Don't behave in front of people in the way that shows you have no regard for them, no respect for them. One of the beautiful aspects of Islamic spirituality is that the more you move forwards towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more humble you become in dealing with people. This is something very important. Once we had a conference and someone asked me, one of the Christian friends who was there, asked me, how do you assess progress of someone in a spiritual journey? And I mentioned few points about the way that person would feel in his prayer and other things. And one of the things I said is that in Islamic spirituality, if you want to see whether you have made any progress or not, you can see it reflected in your relation with other people. If you are really getting closer to God, your relation with people also improve. You become more soft with people, more kind, more humble, and you would see also people open their hearts to you. It's very wrong to think that when you get closer to God and higher, then you are better than people, and you should become more humble. You feel that you are the lowest person. You want to do everything to help people because they are better than you. You want to serve them. So those who are higher, they actually see themselves lower. And those who see themselves higher, they are lower. So this is very important, that any progress can be measured with your humbleness. The more humble you are, the greater chance that you are on the right track. And when we find the description of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Quran and Hadith and history, we see a very important distinctive feature of Rasulullah was he was very, very humble. Humble before Allah, but also humble before people. He was a servant of God, but at the same time a very humble person with respect to creatures, to people of God. To the extent that anyone who was observing Rasulullah among his companions was not noticing that he is holding any privilege for himself. The way he was, for example, sitting was like a circle. He was not, sitting on a throne or, a big chair. He was not escorted by guards and securities. He didn't have a palace. There was no special protocol to go and talk to him or visit him, to the extent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intervened. They used to go to the house of the Prophet and without permission going inside the house. Can you see the humbleness of this man? That everyone feels that he can go in his home without asking permission. Then ayah was revealed. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tadkhulu buyutan nabi illa an yu'dhana lakum. Before getting permission, don't enter his house. They used to enter his house without permission. They used to go inside house and then saying, let's have food here. After food, please give us some hadith. And Allah says, if you go to his home and you are granted permission, don't wait for food. غَيْرَ نَاظِرِينَ إِنَا. And if you had food, فَإِذَا تَعِمْتُمْ فَانْتَشِرُوا. At least if you had food, after food, please go. So, this man was so humble. Sometimes they used to go outside his home and shout, say with his name, and speak to him or ask him to come out. Allah said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُنَادُونَكَ مِنْ وَرَاءِ الْحُجُرَاتِ أَكْثَرُ اللَّهِ. They used to tell him all their stories, insignificant things. He was not telling them, I am very busy, I have lots of responsibilities, what you say is not important, say to Bilal, say to Ammar. He was listening. To the extent that some people started criticizing and said, his ear. مِنْهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ النَّبِيَّ وَيَقُولُونَ هُوَ أُذُنٌ. Some people started annoying him by saying his ear. In that time, today, it's different. Today, sometimes some politicians pretend that they listen. Because now everyone is admiring someone who listens. But at that time, for a leader, especially someone who is receiving revelation, to listen to people was not taken as a good sign, especially to this extent. So, مِنْهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ النَّبِيَّ. They used to annoy the Prophet and saying his ear. And Allah doesn't say he is not ear. He says, وَالْأُذُنُ خَيْرًا لَكُمْ. Yes, he's ear, but good ear. So, he was so much respectful to people. Why? Because he was humble. So, humbleness is very important quality. And we should try to achieve humbleness. One way of achieving humbleness is to constantly reflect on our needs, on our dependence on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why we should not be humble? What is there to give me right to be arrogant? Who am I? I don't have control over anything. Do I have control over my life? Do I have control over my wealth? Do I have control over my family, my children? I have control over nothing. We are very, very vulnerable, very fragile. We are just like a shadow. Why a shadow should be proud? We are just shadow of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best scenario. We have nothing of ourselves. What do you have? If there is anything in us, comes from Him. So we should keep thinking about our need, our dependence on Allah. We should think about good qualities that other people have and bad qualities that we have. If there are people who are younger than us, we should say they are cleaner in their heart, they have done less bad things, less sins. If there are people who are older than us, we should say they have done more ibadah. In that age, still they have iman. I don't know, in that age I'm going to have iman. So always we should find ways to think positively about other people and not become proud. Of course, I don't say lose your self-esteem. No, you should have respect for yourself, but don't take anything for granted and anything that is from you. Actually, those who are humble, at the same time, they are very respectful to themselves. Those who don't have respect for themselves become arrogant. They want to fill the gap that they have inside by demanding from people respect. You know, sometimes you see people who come from very good families, if they become famous or they become very rich, they don't change. But people who are very, very poor, when they become rich, they may change. People who have no regard, when they become well-known, famous, they change. Because there is a gap inside. So you can be very humble, but at the same time, internally, have great honor, respect, and esteem for yourself. Okay, we stop here. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all His blessings, and we ask Him to complete His blessings by making us humble servants of Him. Amen.
Okay, we have Q&A until 9:45. Any questions?